All right, it is gearing up now. It should be live in about less than 30 seconds or so. We're live.
Alrighty, so welcome to today's special planning commission meeting. It is January 19th, 11:05. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and I'll start with a roll call. Tom Aden, absent. Sam Battle, absent. Barry Hubbard,
Here.
here. Present. Chad Schneider,
Here.
Derek Tedrow,
Here.
Dawn Calvert,
Here.
and Mayor Whitfield is here. So we don't have any minutes to approve or miscellaneous correspondence. The purpose of today's meeting is to have a public hearing and just really a follow-up from our last planning commission meeting to establish a redevelopment overlay district. And so we'll start off just with a presentation, kind of refreshing everyone on what that concept is. But just to add some context to it, our focus is really on the Midway Mall area with the ability to put into place this tool to allow for broader economic development at the site. Having this overlay tool in our tool belt allows us to have some control over what happens at the site, but it opens up Midway Mall for more uses. And the one we'll be talking about today is in particular around light industrial. So we've heard a lot of the interest and excitement around a potential fulfillment center or something going at Midway Mall. But the challenge is the way the mall is currently zoned, a fulfillment center would have to go through a process of getting the approval to be able to even open up. And if you know anything about business in terms of these economic development deals, you know that, if you're a private business owner and you have a fulfillment center, you want to go where a site is ready. You want to go where the community is ready for you, as opposed to, hey, if you're interested, we may be able to do this, but it has to go through the planning commission and council, then this and that. And if it goes through all that, then it's a good site for you. This is doing that proactive work so that if we do have a potential vendor that's interested in this site, we're ready to go. So I'm gonna pass it over to Stephanie Mercado. She's gonna give a short presentation to kind of refresh you all on this, and then we'll get into some discussion. Stephanie?
Hi, good morning. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation that we went over at the Planning Commission meeting, but with a couple of updates as to where we are today and for the purpose of the public hearing. So just as an overview, we're going to talk about what an overlay district is again, the process to adopt it, an overview of the redevelopment overlay district definition and requirements, and then potential application to some areas in the city. So the overlay district is a zoning district which is applied over one or more previously established zoning districts, establishing additional or stricter standards and criteria for covered properties, in addition to those of the underlying district. Common usage is in historic districts, natural resource protection, economic development projects, including specific development projects, such as any mixed use, waterfront development, housing, or affordable housing. The real goal is using an overlay when there is a lack of a current zoning solution to support desired land use outcomes. Here is the map of Lakewood that we reviewed, just so that you can see kind of down here in the bottom right-hand corner that their zoning overlay is just cross-hatched over a portion of the city where it is, where it's located. The process of implementing this in the city is to first amend the code, which is what we've been talking about, and then the second is to amend the zoning map. So the intent of the proposed redevelopment overlay district is to redevelop underutilized, vacant, or blighted areas of the city in furtherance of economic growth, vitality, and resurgence. in addition to supporting designs that are intended to encourage flexibility, innovation, and creativity in insight and development design by allowing the mixing of permitted uses or modification or variation from otherwise applicable zone district and development standards. So I believe in your packet, you've got some updated language with some comments from the law director based on prior language that we had reviewed. So I wanted to go over just a quick review of some suggested changes for your consideration.
And real quick, Stephanie, just to set some context again. So in order to do this, the first thing we need to look at is just the language to approve the city to be able to have a overlay district, period. Doesn't matter where it is. The first piece is to approve language that the city can even go down this journey and have this tool. And then we'll talk about specific, on the second agenda item, we'll talk specifically about parcels and locations and things like that. So
That's yeah. So in terms of that first step of the process, in terms of amending the code with language that you have in your packet, language that supports a primary use of both the base and overlay, except in the case of the outdoor storage, auto repair, and R&D. Those three exceptions would require a conditional use permit. And I think that is in alignment with some of the discussions we've had about outdoor storage in general. Same thing with conditional use. It's both the base and overlay are permitted. However, once again, with those exceptions for those three carve-outs from primary use. Setbacks favor the most restrictive setback when adjacent to a residential zone. For parking, parking that the plan can contemplate either the requirements in the base or overlay, depending on what the type of planning is or type of project is. And then outdoor storage, once again, it would be subject to conditional use permit. And then finally, in terms of what I called other, that implementing a redevelopment overlay district is recommended to be eligible only in existing locations that are zoned either business general or light industrial, with a specific prohibition about of including heavy industrial. And once again, to ask the question is, why is the overlay needed in Elyria? It's to support a comprehensive vision for redevelopment, to provide proactive development guidance, to allow mixed use current and future development, specifically addressing this issue where there isn't a current zoning solution if you would like retail and warehousing in the same type of development area, and then really to help the city compete for investment. So maybe before we talk about the map in terms of looking at.
Yeah, let's talk about the language first. Yeah. So any comments, questions from the committee, just in terms of this tool, the zoning overlay tool, and amending the code and putting in language so that the city has the ability to do zoning overlays?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes,
I guess specifically, what does providing this new mechanism of an overlay get us versus perhaps developing a new zoning type that contains the restrictions and uses that we want? I mean, I understand we don't have those zoning types right now, but it feels like it's just a new list of permitted uses within a zone, and almost I'm questioning what the overlay mechanism buys us that a new zone would not buy us, a new type of zone.
Stephanie, you want to speak to that, or Jim? You're muted, Jim, by the way. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, I would say the overlay provides flexibility in a variety of different circumstances, as opposed to if you were going to amend the code and propose a new zoning type, um, that you might be able to, I think when we talk about Midway Mall, we're going to be talking about overlaying light industrial on top of business general. There might be circumstances where you want to use this tool to overlay a different type of zoning on top of business general. So it gives you more flexibility, to address areas of the city that might be underutilized. Would be the first, the first major difference.
But am I correct in understanding that in the end, we really aren't looking at overlaying light industrial on top of the business general, because there are certain permitted uses within light industrial that we would further restrict under this, which would, again, really, it's not just allowing two existing zones, it's really creating a new type of permitted uses that are a combination, super and subset of these two individually. Am I understanding that right, at least as far as how we're looking at applying this today?
With the recommended changes from the law department, that is correct, that there would be some restrictions. That the original, I think the first copy of language we looked at were had it accepting both base and overlay without restriction. This is adding some restriction, in terms of contemplating what that mixed use would look like and what areas the city would be sensitive around in terms of applying this type of mixed use standard. However, it would be viewed the same at any location that this would be implemented within the city. It's not site specific. It can be exercised citywide.
And the one thing that I think that the main reason is this gives the city the opportunity to be proactive in terms of development. The traditional rezoning process will require that individual entity to be able to come to the city and say, hey, I've purchased this property, or I'm potentially going to purchase this property, and therefore I want this to be rezoned so that I can do this use. This gives us the proactive nature to say, we believe this location in the site is prime for X, and so we're going to create a zoning overlay to allow for that X to be eligible for this site. And in particular, in this case with the mall. Now, traditionally, and I don't know if Stephanie can speak to the situation in Lakewood, traditionally, the restrictions, I don't think these restrictions would carry, we wouldn't have all these additional restrictions, but, fortunately, unfortunately, there's this opportunity to put these restrictions in place so that more people are comfortable within the city, and then we'll hear maybe some concerns from other neighbors as well.
So I guess, and maybe this would be a question for Jim. Mechanically speaking, though, how does the use of an overlay make it easier or harder than, say, proactively rezoning that area in a zone with the restrictions or uses that we are comfortable with?
My interpretation, this really, and Stephanie, tell me if I'm wrong, this really is a new classification. It's a mixed, I call it a mixed classification with restrictions, so that, as the mayor said, we can act more efficiently instead of wasting potentially sometimes 2, 3, 4 months. We're saying in this specific zoning classification, which again, there could be this one at the mall if that's where it ends up being. This could be somewhere else in the city. We could actually create one that would be an overlay with residential. So this actually is a new classification of our zoning code. And we believe, from the administration standpoint, I hope council also agrees, that the Midway Mall area, or this type of classification, which would fit in the Midway Mall area, allows us to be much more proactive. It does limit stuff like truck storage, et cetera, because we don't want that there, but yet we could have a distribution center, or it still could have a grocery store or whatever, without having to redevelop, again, spot zoning where you have this here, 50 feet away, you have the others, industrial zoning. This is that overlay that allows both usages at the same time.
So in other words, we're calling it an overlay, but we're creating a mixed use zone. And we are, in essence, going to rezone that area prior to individual spot requests. Is that, which we could do with existing zoning laws too, with a new type of zone, rezone that area, not just the ones that were requested, correct?
This could be in other parts of the city, this specific one, or you could create possibly later on a different type of overlay that's not on the books or discussed at this point by any constituents or developers. But yeah, the purpose of this is to create something that can develop an area of the city that we think right now needs redeveloping, yet we'll still have control that you're not going to have all light industrial uses, but ones that would fit in that criteria area near a highway, et cetera, along with the general business. Stephanie, am I missing anything?
I would just add that it doesn't change the base zoning. In a traditional rezone, you're now telling the folks who are there, their use is no longer permitted. In this, their use is still permitted, it's still eligible. If others are interested in a similar use there, they can also move there. It's saying it's an addition to what's there. This is also eligible for an additional use as well as what's traditionally been there.
Correct.
Correct.
And I do think that's smart because we have such a huge amount of territory there. And clearly we're not going to fill it all with the same use. It's just not, it's not going to happen. So this is smart to have both, to develop it in two different ways potentially, and say, and to greet the potential developer that we're open to what you have to bring to us as long as it fits it within these categories.
In the future, if we were going to use an overlay in a portion of the city, is that something that mayor or comes back in front of the planning commission or city council, or does that give a department free will to assign that wherever they want?
No, if this overlay that we're proposing passes and the exact type of overlay needs to go to a different part of the city, we wouldn't have to create the zoning code for it. We still would have to rezone through planning commission and council that respective new piece of property in the city. Or if we do another type of overlay and added another type to a code later on, still that code section would have to come in front of you. And then the property that we would be talking about would be the second step.
Yeah.
So this first step just allows this classification, which is us and the council. The next step would be a specific location for this, which we all know would be the mall in this case.
Sure.
If you want to move this to the east side, south side, et cetera, that actual movement and reclassification would require the property owners or the city to come in and say, we want to have another one of these in the city.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
And we can make the secondary zoning whatever we feel fit for the area. It doesn't have to be the same as what we're doing here. It doesn't have to be BG to LI. It could be residential to BG, correct, or vice versa.
Correct. But that would require,
it's smart because
that would require us to go back and put another type of classification in the code. But you're right, Chad.
okay, thank you.
Is that true, Stephanie, the way that we're writing the language now, that it isn't just the business general to light industrial? It could be other things in the future that.
Yeah, right now, you can only, the way it's written right now, the only way that you could use it is if your base zone is business general or light industrial. So, but it does, and that the only prohibition against that is that you can't place a heavy industrial overlay on top of it. So you can't go up to heavy industrial, but that if you're looking at where else you could apply this in the city, it would, the way the language is right now, it would be existing parcels that are zoned business general or light industrial, but it doesn't currently prohibit, an overlay of anything other than heavy industrial right now.
Okay, so as long as its base is business general or light industrial, it can get an overlay applied to it with any sort of overlay that the board determines, council determines, other than heavy industrial.
Yeah, correct.
Any other questions about the language portion of this and amending the code? I mean, this is a huge step, and this is important that we get this right. So Barry, I appreciate the question. Any further questions? I think that because it's a public hearing, are there any opponents to the city adding the language, amending the code to have this language for a zoning overlay? Again, this is before we talk about specific parcels, but is there any opposition to the language amendment? Any opposing? Any opposing? Any opposing? Any proposing? Any others proposing? All right, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the proposed amendment to the municipal code to create a redevelopment overlay district.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Snyder,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Calvert. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
And were there any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. And then we'll have Mr. Battle will be joining us. He texted me, he should be joining us as well. So we'll try to get his for the record as well. The next piece we'll be discussing is the specific parcels. And Stephanie, you want to go over those specific parcels?
So the next step of the meeting is considering applying the overlay to the general area of Midway Mall. In terms of on the screen, the parcels that we included are outlined and highlighted in yellow. So it includes all current major structures of the mall at this point in time. Just as an area just to highlight the I don't know if you can see my cursor over this out parcel right here, but I believe this is zone business neighborhood. It's not business general, so that was outside of the overlay, and that's why it wasn't included. But based on surveying the mall area and identifying the best areas to include as part of the overlay district would be what's on your map. The intent would be to, for the most part, overlay the entire mall, overlay light industrial on top of business general, with the exception if the zoning or the rezone does go through on the Sears parcel, that would have to be the reverse and put business general back on top of light industrial. In the event of sometime in the future, there might be a possibility to look at some sort of retail holistic use of part of a larger scale redevelopment component of the mall.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. And so our proposal on this is to have this with some restrictions. So I'd like for Daryl to give his take on this as well, and then we have some folks, Johnny K out see is on, as well as the Hampton Inn, to get some of their feedback as well. So Daryl, I'll start with the zoning administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start off with just the purpose and intent of a business general, to give the panel an idea of what is permitted at the base of the initial zoning. Then I'll go into what a light industrial is, so they can also understand what is permitted in light industrial, but also in regards to what would be restricted. The request, the proponent is requesting multiple parcels of Midway Mall properties to be incorporated into a proposed redevelopment overlay, RDOD, in attempts of expanding the functionality of the site. The intent is to permit a light industrial district use overlay in an established BG district. Findings. The parcels listed above, including the parcels in my notes, are zone business general, the requirements of which can be found in the Elyria Codified Ordinance, Section 1160. The purpose of a business general district is to provide a wide variety of needs for both convenience and a more common and often reoccurring shopping goods of household services. The principally permitted uses include allied health facilities, automotive sales, childcare facilities, club, commercial recreation, commercial schools, convenience business, dental, medical clinics, drive-in facilities, educational institutions, fast food restaurants, financial institutions, government health buildings, health units, hospitals, etc. exception with the 1 and 2 and 3 household dwellings. It also permits restaurants, retail business, shopping centers, and etc. Page 2. Finally continued, light industrial. The requirements of a light industrial district can be found in the Elyria Codified Ordinance, Chapter 1164. The purpose of a light industrial district is to accommodate and encourage development of light industrial uses which operate within closed structures, clean, quiet, and free of hazardous or objectionable elements such as noise, odor, dust, smoke, glare, or vibration. Principally permitted uses can be found in Section 1164.02, which are as follows: automotive repair, service, business material related trades, cellular communication sites, contract construction services, light manufacturing and storage, lock and store warehouse, off-premise signs, printing and publishing, public utility yards, research development laboratories, truck terminals, warehousing, wholesale business, call centers, and any other use determined by the building inspector to be the same general character of the permitted uses listed herein. Note, per section 1125.61 definition section of the Elyria Codified Ordinance, light manufacturing storage means the assembling, altering, fabricating, finishing, or processing or treatment of a storage of a product. Permitted accessory uses can also be found in 1164.03 Elyria Codified Ordinance, which states the follows: any use customary and incidental to the permitted use, offices, signs, etc., as regulated in Chapter 1137 or 1173 and 1174. Accessory uses other than signs, fences, and offices shall be located in the rear yard only and located not closer than 6 feet from any lot line and covering not more than 35%. Staff recommendations. Per the new ordinance language proposed, the overlay would require outside storage areas to be suitably screened by a fence or dense landscape so that the exterior area is not visible from neighboring sites, lots, common areas, or public roads. Per the fence requirements of the Elyria Codified Ordinance, Chapter 1137, specifically, Section 1137.15 states the maximum height of a commercial fence is 8 feet. Contingent, the height is approved by the building inspector in advance. The height requirement coupled with the fence location regulations, front and rear yard, would limit the location of storage area and also the storage height permitted, thus assuring the materials are properly concealed as described herein. The proposal also revokes parking space requirements per the Elyria Codified Ordinance, Section 1175, for new district, as the new permitted overlay use for light industrial may alter current parking patterns, flow, and access contingent upon the specific nature of the business. I will defer to the engineering department and fire department for further input. In closing, the site is comprised primarily of business general districts, of which consists of multiple diverse establishments in and around the area. The board must consider how the proposal such as this will maintain the integrity of the budding zoning districts, map attached, in a pre-established business general district if approved. The overlay classification would permit any use described herein. Thank you. I need water.
Thank you, Mr. Farkas. And we'll go to Mr. Schneider, the chief engineer. But Mr. Farkas, I did want to get your opinion on your recommendation for this, because from my understanding, this was you were more supportive of the overlay than anything else. And so I didn't know if you mentioned that.
Sure. Yeah, the overlay in itself, as proposed in the ordinance, would give some control akin to a conditional use, which would allow a very diverse type of growth in this area, which is in a prime location. The concerns were, again, the outside storage of potential mechanical feel of a light industrial district if brought to this. If properly screened and governed, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Mr. Farkas. Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Without knowing what's actually going in out there, it can be a challenge. The good news is the mall has a lot of truck traffic, or in the past, and looking at it as far as traffic patterns are concerned, I don't have any big issues. The utilities out there are adequate as for industrial as well, so I don't have any big issues, but obviously everything's on a case-by-case basis still, but as far as traffic is concerned, no big issues.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Questions from the panel to the staff, or questions of the panel period of the Planning Commission?
Is there more stuff around there that's zone business general? I guess we rattled off a lot of the permitted uses. Are those hotels, it looks like the old Holiday Inn is excluded from this overlay district. Is it business general right now, or is there any reason why that's kind of constricted only to the mall, if there might be other redevelopment in the area?
Barry, that area is entirely zoned business general, with the exception of the apartment complex on Fox Hill Lane. And as mentioned earlier by Stephanie, there's several parcels on the upper, I guess right where the mouse or cursor is right now. That is currently zoned business downtown district. And the parcel directly below that, it's slightly skewed, is zoned business neighborhood. Those are only two what I call quirks in the zoning, but everything else in the surrounding area is business general.
I would just be curious if there'd be any benefit to trying to apply the overlay over a similar area to where the business general would be. What was the thought process for excluding it just to the former Midway Mall site?
I can't respond.
Dawn, yeah, I'll let Dawn respond to that.
Thank you. So we really looked at this based on a lot of conversations we'd had with brokers and, trying to reutilize the site. And where we heard the most concern was specifically tied to the Midway Mall site as you see it today. So these are the properties that could potentially have high value in the market for redevelopment. However, the zoning is the reason they get pushed back. So as we talk, this asset class is, the asset class of retail is not in high demand. The asset class of light industrial to allow for distribution and logistics is. So when you think about that and the configuration of the infrastructure as it is today, we really looked at specifically the Midway Mall site and that enclosed space where we could redevelop this specifically. So that isn't to say that down the road there may be a case to be made for incorporating some of these parcels into the zoning overlay district. But based on what we know today after multiple conversations, we're trying to solve that problem of the chicken and egg. The businesses won't sign on until the zoning is there for what they need. And these are the sites where there is interest in redeveloping those. So Barry, I'm happy to answer any additional questions you or anyone else on the commission has specific to that. But it really was based on the conversations we've had and our understanding of the layout of the site and the infrastructure coming in and out.
Mr. Snyder, you have a question as well? Chad, you have a question?
Me or the engineer? Oh, okay. Wasn't sure. No, I was just looking at the map thinking, do we overlay from road to road or just leave it the way it is? Like, that's the only, I was just looking at it as more of a district.
Yeah, so from a process standpoint, if we want to revisit more of these later on, we can. There's a process that we've notified all the adjacent property owners. There's a process that we couldn't just do that in this meeting. If we wanted to go back and look at these later, we'd go through a similar process of notifying those adjacent property owners as well. But we really think this could be, again, a kickstart to the development at the mall.
I guess it would just wait on like what the end game is with everything, and then what happens after that. I guess it would be smart to just monitor it as a board.
So I see we have some folks on from Johnny K and Hampton Inn. Would you like to chime in and kind of share with us some of your thoughts as well?
Yeah, that'd be great. This is John from Johnny K's. Hey, I applaud all of you guys for really making an effort to redevelop the area. I'm starting my third year at the Midway Mall, and it's been good, but definitely some of our difficulties have taken place. So I am with you guys on the redevelopment. The only thing I do ask is we don't forget about, I've spent millions of dollars there, and I'm okay with the light industrial. I like how Mr. Farkas is talking about limiting certain things and outdoor storage. One thing that I've been struggling with is the vacancies in the mall. They're not plowing, they're not doing maintenance, a lot of customers are complaining about knowing where we're at or how to get in. So I guess during this redevelopment, I would ask that, can we look at other access points to get into the mall or get in? I think a lot of businesses looking at the space would probably agree with me, having some additional or easier way to get in to the mall area.
I have a question. Is Johnny K's technically landlocked by the other parcels? Does anyone know?
I believe it's landlocked, but there's an agreement for access,
Like an easement for road?
access easement.
I believe
Okay.
I own, yeah, you're right. I believe I own the ring road, but will that ring road ever go away? Hopefully not.
So a couple of things I'll share, and thank you for calling in and being a part of this. And thank you for the support of this redevelopment. As you know, we've been working closely with one of the developers who is very collaborative and has done these sort of development projects in other spaces around Northeast Ohio. So our intent would definitely be to engage you in those conversations and make sure you're a part of it. You know, I was actually put on my board today that once we get through this hoop, and then once we start to really look at the comprehensive redevelopment, that we'll need to have some sit down and kind of talk about, all right, what's the, you know, because I even think about it's called a mall. So if it's shifting from being a mall, what is this thing going to be called? So there's definitely going to be some more conversation that we're going to have. So we definitely want to keep you engaged on that.
And there are mutual access agreements in place because it's a mall with different people, that there's always been the ability to use the entire parcel by the different entities. So though they are landlocked, there is access to everyone in this.
I guess I don't potentially have any issues being, I mean, is that what we're agreeing on? That I should always have some kind of access?
Sure.
But the city
Yeah.
will protect that, obviously.
Yes. And
So-
right.
Any way of trying to get access off of Route 57?
I knew you were gonna go there. I knew you were gonna go there. We've had those conversations with ODOT. The challenge is that you have the exit right there, and then you have where Red Lobster is, and there's such a short window there that how do you stop traffic enough to allow traffic to cross and go into it? But that is a conversation we're having. We are trying to talk with ODOT about how can we have another entry point off of 57 earlier on, but it's just so difficult with the exit ramp being right there, and then the light being right there. But that is something we're talking about.
I think, Mayor, that would be a huge thing for the redevelopment. I think that would change a lot of things for people coming in to buy or lease space.
Yeah,
So
we agree. Yeah. So we just gotta, there's some, and I'm sure the engineer can speak to there's just some like science behind this stuff of how close things can be to an intersection and an exit. And we're just trying to negotiate with them a little bit on the flexibility on that. John, do you want to speak to that, Chief Engineer?
You're exactly right, Mayor. Not to mention it's limited access highway out there. So ODOT does not give that up easily. So, and they just redid the whole mall area with the traffic study. So I don't believe they're going to be too keen on additional access, maybe a right in, definitely nothing going out.
But we'll keep pushing, because we definitely think that is a barrier right now. So we'll keep pushing for options.
awesome. Well, I appreciate everything. Thank you.
The one other question I have for you in terms of the outdoor storage. So that was that sufficient in terms of your concerns for these, for this light industrial use there? Was the outdoor storage and making sure? And I heard you mention the easement and being able to have access. Was there any other concerns?
No, the outdoor storage, obviously we invested quite a bit of money in my eyes, even painting the building and outdoor, and, we just don't want to have obstruction, or if we do have a light industrial or trucking, traffic coming in and having these trucks trying to back up and basically sitting in the ring, I call it the ring road, the main access point. these trucks trying to back up. I think we really need to be cognizant of how that flow and turning points and traffic as far as, my customers coming in.
Yep.
It's really hard for them to know where we're at, to be honest. That's probably the biggest thing I get is, how do I get into your place?
Yeah.
So
Definitely, and that's what I mean in terms of signage. Our hopes is that we, and I don't know how much I can talk about it publicly, but I'll share as much as I can, is that our hopes is to really redevelop that whole mall area so that new signage, new wayfinding, new name, and it's very clear, here's how you get to what place where at the mall, because I could totally see that challenge that you face with folks finding where you are. And so we hope that this is just one step towards that process of getting that full redevelopment.
yeah, no, I think it's I think it's great. I mean, as long as some of the stuff stays in place, because I am still a retail shop, so
Yep.
that's my biggest concern. Especially, you see my property line is kind of awkward where my front entrance is, and I probably should have thought further down. But I don't own that property technically right in front of my front doors, so I just have to be really clear with whoever buys that or whoever's redeveloping it that I have. And I have been in talks with the developers or people that are looking. So it sounds like they're reasonable.
Yes,
But-
for sure.
But yeah, no, I think other than that, just outdoor storage. I mean, as long as it's done tastefully and they're aware of it, I think it's great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I see we have someone from the Hampton Inn. Would you also like to provide some comments?
Yes, I would have to say I agree with Johnny. We also have the same concerns just regarding signage mainly. People have a lot of trouble finding our location. We are kind of tucked back here on Travelers Lane. It is kind of hard because, however, our address is listed on Lorraine Boulevard. So that causes a lot of confusion for us, especially now that the Days Inn has closed. That is another issue we're having. The guests kind of complain a lot in our online reviews that the area just kind of looks run down. So I would have to say, the redevelopment, we are backing you guys up 100% on that. We do think it's a great idea. We're looking forward to any changes that you guys are willing to bring. I think any business really would be good business. However, as long as it's kept, like he said, in a tasteful manner, we don't really want our guests having to look out the windows and see, a lot of, garbage per se, or, what they would consider, anything, kind of over the top, industrial, but anything is better than nothing at this point, I would feel.
No, I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing these concerns. Again, with the signage piece, I'm hoping that as we look at the full redevelopment, that can be something that's addressed. And to your point about, and I'm very passionate about the mall for a number of reasons, but I often say the mall is not a neutral site. Its decline impacts so many other things around it. And hearing you say, you're getting online reviews that are negative because of the decline that's happening at the mall, like that. Right. I hope we see that as a city, that this isn't just a neutral site. That if we don't do something, it's going to harm the businesses around it. And
yeah, absolutely.
Mayor, can I say, this is John again. I apologize for interrupting. We, the Hampton Inn and myself, we just spent, I think it was $4,000. I had a company come in to trim, and it still looks bad, but to trim the fence lines from the Red Lobster all the way over past the hotels, brush hog lots, and cut some stuff. I mean, it's such an eyesore, and I think a lot of the people that drive by there, because it's the main source. I mean, I'm from the Youngstown area, and everyone knows that exit that goes to Cedar Point, that goes to Put-in-Bay. Everyone, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. But as soon as you get off that exit, I don't know if the city can partake in helping. I know it's ODOT property, but just the cleanliness and to manicure that when you get off that highway there, it would be huge. I mean, So we're spending our own money on it, but it'd be nice to see if this is such an important project, maybe you guys can help. That and the plowing is just, I know I talked to you about it before, but it's maintaining the presence of, hey, we're alive, we're here, we're caring about the area. I think it'd be a big thing.
Oh, I appreciate that big time.
Yeah, I'd have to say honestly, right now, I mean, I have a giant gaping hole in the road in front of Days Inn. It looked like they dug it up maybe for some water repairs or something. And then when they moved out, they just kind of left it. The city says it's not their responsibility. The hotel had said it was not their responsibility, and it was kind of tossed back and forth. And now there's just a giant hole. You know, so of course, you know, my owners have decided, you know, we're just probably going to put in the money to fix it, but there's just a lot of confusion as to whose responsibility the road is, you know, who's going to fix that problem, because again, now the reviews are falling onto, you know, my property because the other ones are closed. So, and now, you know, I don't know if you're aware, but, you know, we do own the courtyard behind myself. So, you know, it's just kind of falling now back on our properties that, you know, our properties are great, but, you know, they're getting a bad impression before they even make it to our properties.
Yeah. You know, and that's why a part of my role, task, goal is to really push for accountability from these businesses as well. You know, some of these developers who have not put any money into their properties and just allow things to fall. We're really trying to crack down on that around the city. And you know, I'm trying to find the best language to use, but it's either put up or get out the way. You know, either you're going to do right by the city and do right by the residents and develop and take care of your property, or we're just going to have to code enforce you and try to move you out of the way. So that's kind of been my approach to this, and we'll keep that same stance here. Unfortunately, we have an interested developer in this area that if we can kind of work as a partner to help them acquire what they need to acquire so that this whole mall can be redeveloped, I think that your business will benefit and the city will benefit long term. So going back to are there any other comments, any other community members? And I'll go to proponents and opponents, and then we'll have some discussion. Chad, did you raise your hand?
Does the city still, just curious, while we're on the topic of all of these parcels and this redevelopment plan, does the city or the Community Development Corporation still own the former Mountain Jacks parcels north of the former Holiday Inn?
Yes, we do. It's now in the CIC, and we are, that's a part of the discussions with the development of the site as well, with the developer ICP.
Okay, perfect. And I don't know, I mean, in my opinion, you may be able, I mean, this is just talk, you could potentially put an egress in between the two parcels of Johnny K's with that parcel up to travelers to get a better access point, but that would obviously be up to the developer because it's essentially their property, but that looks like a potential solution to some of what they're talking about.
Yeah, running it right down there. Yeah. So no, that's got to be a part of the, you know, as we get into this master planning of this site, I think that has to be on the table. Any other proponents? Any other opponents? Any opponents? All right, so I'll entertain a motion for the establishment of a redevelopment overlay on parcels 0624031107 062403000123 0624031107 0624031107 062403000111 0624031107 062403000135 0624031107 and 0624031107 that would layer a light industrial district over the existing general business district with the restrictions that were outlined before around outdoor storage. Jim, did I miss anything to add to that motion?
Things we talked.
Jim, you're muted. Go ahead. Did I miss anything on that?
So,
You're unmuted now. Did I miss anything on that?
no, and I believe Stephanie can confirm, those issues about blockage, et cetera, are covered in the overlay language. So you're correct, your motion is correct.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, a second.
I haven't had a motion yet.
Oh, I thought you were the motion, okay.
I made the motion.
Schneider, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Battle. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And were there any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all for your time today. Thank you for a great meeting. And thank you, Johnny Kays and Hampton. Folks from Hampton, please continue to keep us in the loop on concerns you have, and we'll do our best to try to address them.
Thank you.